So we go in and like, little do I know, this is the room. It's going to be D-Day in there.
You're like, I'm great. It's just all I'm seeing is stars. The role that I felt I had was like the water boy on a sports team. Where like, you're on that team, but you are not on that field.
Like, it's the most rewarding feeling on the planet. And immediately you're like, I could have done that level of pain for a week. It's this rush of emotion because you like now there was 2 of us and now there's 3 of us. Welcome back to another episode of Just Alex. Maybe my favorite episode ever because I officially get to say I'm a mom and I'm here with the father, the dada. You're not at father sounds way too like formal for you. Dada. I call you dada.
You're a mom, a mother.
We're parents. Yeah, so this is such an exciting episode because a week ago, our little happy, healthy, sweet, in our eyes perfect, little baby girl Tate was born. And we've just been in newborn heaven ever since then. I don't know about you. Well, actually, okay, so Harrison and I have had this conversation a lot. We'll be looking at her and we're like, can you believe it? She's here. Because it felt like she was never going to come. I would watch all these people post. Like, I kind of knew who I was friends with on Instagram that was pregnant within the, 4 weeks of us. And I felt like everybody had their baby. And I was just like, we're never going to have ours. Did you feel that way?
Well, no. I mean, that's such a hard question to answer.
Like, we knew we'd have it, but I was just like, when? And it didn't feel real until...
It was a really, really, really long 9 months.
Yes, and it never felt real.
And I wasn't carrying the kid.
And you weren't even pregnant, and it was a long 9 months. Isn't it so funny to sit here though and say like, I would have done 18 months to feel this feeling of having this baby?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable.
It has been unbelievable. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk through the birth story and then how the first week of having the baby's been. Who just want to like go?
I mean, it's your show.
Okay. Fire in the hole. All right. So last week on Monday, the 16th, we go in to be induced at like 10 a.m. I'm just going to dive into the story. Okay. So 10 a.m. we go in and we're sitting in the hospital and there's just like this cute little nurse walks outside like any regular doctor appointment and is like, Alex? And I'm like, well, she's Alexa. And I'm like, yep. And Harrison and I just get up and it's this sweet nurse named Rachel. The baby's like cooing. The baby's in the room. Okay, I think she's good. So we walk back to the room and she's like, all right, we're in room 88. It's up here on the right. And it's just like a regular doctor appointment interaction so far. And we like walk into this room. Little do I know
I think it was room 11. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I think it was room 11 at the end because I thought that would be like her lucky number.
Okay, was it 4411?
Yeah.
We're on the 4th floor. Okay,
yeah.
I added the 4s and it was an 8. So
okay.
I was like trying to remember it. Okay, so
Not
room
my
11.
story.
And then, our postpartum room was with the 8s. So we go in and like, little do I know, this is the room. It's going to be D-Day in there. And at the time though, you just walk in and we're like, great view. Like it's a massive room. And she's like, okay, you guys just get settled and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. And first impression of the nurse, loved her. That was the highlight. Like you could tell this girl was awesome. So she leaves and comes back and she's like, change into your gown. So I changed into the gown. I wore the hospital gown, by the way. Like sometimes you take your own. Love the hospital gowns. Put on the gown. I get in the bed and you know you're going to be in this room for like 24, 48, 72 hours, however long it's going to take. So it is odd to start to like unpack, because you have like a little bit of the jitters. And so she comes in and she says, okay, to start your induction, I'm going to give you this oral pill. We're going to check to see if you're dilated. This first pill I'm going to give you takes 4 hours and it just starts to dilate you more. And I know some people take the pill like that goes up the butt or whatever, but I took the oral pill. She checks to see if I'm dilated. They still check to see if you're dilated with their fingers, which you'd think that would be done by machine now, but the dilation, she just sticks her fingers all the way up there. I've never felt anything like it. And she just opens them up and she comes out. She's like, okay, you're dilated to a 2. And I was like, okay, well, we're on our way. And then she gives me the pill and you just sit there and you chill for 4 hours. So I have a very normal first 7-8 hours of the induction. Like I just slowly start to open up. Like I'm in minimal pain. Now the only thing was, so I took the first pill and then she starts the Pitocin, which is the drip of the IV, which is like where things really speed up. So 1 pill, I got to a 3. Then she starts the Pitocin. And I was like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, like
Do you want to clarify like what a 3 is real quickly?
a 3, I was dilated to a 3.
Yeah, but like I didn't know about any of this, like a 2 or a 3 and getting to the 10.
Oh.
And like, I don't know I'm sure a lot of listeners will know this, but like the 10-second explanation on it.
So you have to be dilated to 10 centimeters to have the child. And I was at a 3 out of 10.
And then when you get to 10, you start pushing.
Yes. When you get to 10, you start pushing. Yeah. And it's really hard. So the longest part is 2 to 6. Takes forever. And then 6 to 10 speeds up. So I was like, but you're being induced at your first baby. That takes the longest. So like very normal, just slow process. We're like watching some shows. We're hanging out. Like we're just chilling. And then what happened was when I was around 4 centimeters, they say call for the epidural early because you get in line at the hospital no matter what. Like if there's 12 people in this line for the epidural, you're 12th in line. If there's one, you get it a little sooner. So you have to quote unquote call for the epidural. So I call for the epidural when my pain, not what I was dilated to, my pain was at a 4. And I have a high pain tolerance. So I was like, because once you call for the epidural, you can't walk anymore and you can't eat anymore, which is why I wanted to make it as long as I possibly could. Because I was enjoying like standing up some and we brought snacks. So I was enjoying that. So I call for the epidural comes in, they put it in. When they put the epidural in, I felt like some relief, but I wouldn't say I felt this like, they say everything just goes numb and like you take like a warm little nap. I was like, okay, that removed some of the pain. So that's the first little tidbit. So everything, like a very normal induction is happening so far. Nurse changed shifts. We get a new girl named Mackenzie. Mackenzie's amazing. Mackenzie's going to be there 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And when she got on, she was like, okay, things are starting to move. This is exciting because I'm going to get to meet this baby. I bet you have her around like 5, 6 a.m. And I was like, heck yeah. So everything starts crawling along. Okay, and then around 2 a.m. hits. And this is the part where you're going to have to tell it because I don't remember. All I remember was there was a bunch of people standing like around.
Well, why don't you say it from your perspective and then I'll jump in terms of how I saw things.
So like I don't know, everything was fine. And I was like trying to take a little nap. And all I remember was just looking over to my right and there was like 8 or 9 people, but I don't really know like what they were saying. So I don't like, that's kind of all I know. It's a bit blurry.
Yeah. So initially you always had low blood pressure.
Yeah.
And our core nurse at the time was doing another delivery and a notification went off that your blood pressure was low. And so that nurse came in to check on you and, your blood pressure got really low. It was like at a 50 but you were talking to the nurse and you appeared to be fully coherent. And I'm just like kind of watching this go on and they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And, I think I've called it up before, like you have PR Alex. And I'm like, you're just not being you. And so like you're talking to the nurse and then I just kind of like tap you. I'm like, Alex, I was like, are you sure you're okay? I was like, tell me if you're not okay. And you're like, I'm great. It's just all I'm seeing is stars. And the nurse heard that and just like everyone shot into, let's fix the situation mode because
50's low.
50's really
50's low.
But I think the other point to it is the baby's, like the monitoring of the baby's whatever signs, vitals, they were all normal and your heart rate and everything else they were tracking was normal. But for whatever reason, they were confused as to how it got so low. And so, they had the doctor come in, they had a whole bunch of other folks come in. And I think the conclusion is that they tested a couple things, but the epidural was causing it. And so the game plan was to turn off the epidural until...
It was to pause the epidural.
Pause the epidural, sorry.
Yeah.
And I guess, rehydrate you.
and regulate the blood pressure, and then turn the epidural back on at a lower dose.
Yeah, and I remember one of the pieces, if I recall, it was they were trying to figure out if you had internal bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of the whole ordeal.
Yeah, so this and when things like that happen, like time starts to fly by, which is kind of nice. So then they did like the check of the cervix, and I was dilated to a 5. And they turned the epidural off. And I felt like I could feel some of the contractions coming back, and I was like, okay, you know that. So then they gave it an hour, and so then they came back in and they turned the epidural on slightly. But the problem is the epidural never turned back on. So I fast forward, I like to go from a 5 to a 6, and I'm like, golly, like I'm just feeling every single contraction. So they call the anesthesiologist back in, and he does this thing called, it's like a form of dosing it, but it starts with a B. But they were using some term, I don't know. But you kind of come in and you put in like extra doses, I don't know. And I would feel those, and that lasted like an hour, and then fast forward to I hit an 8. Like I'm dilated to an 8, and like there's no epidural happening. And I am just like, oh my God, this like hurts really bad. But I also have a high pain tolerance. What?
Well, I think what's important to note in this is we didn't know, like, it didn't come up that the epidural wasn't working over that. Like the way I remember it is you were in a bunch of pain, but like the conversation wasn't the epidural wasn't working. The conversation was like you were in pain, and there just wasn't no way to know if that's normal pregnancy pain or like reduced pain from the epidural. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like they kept saying like you'll feel pressure, and I was like, I'm feeling pressure, but like I'm also in hell. And it's getting worse every time like I dilate more. And I'm starting to throw up every like 30 minutes because of the pain. And so I'm just like getting really, really, really uncomfortable. So I dilate to a 10, a 9 or a 10. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we're going to start the pushing process. And what happened was there was a nurse shift change because we thought we'd have her by the time Mackenzie was off. Don't even remotely make that. So we have a nurse shift change. And what happened was Mackenzie knew the pain was bad. But when we got the new nurse, it was like fresh morning shift. Like all that happened was like she knew I was at a 9 or a 10. So it was time to push. And I was expressing I was in a lot of pain. She didn't know we had turned off the epidural. Like I think she just thought, you know, like you're feeling a lot of pressure, honey. We got to go. So we start to push. And every push is just like I'm throwing up every like 15 minutes. And I'm when I'm in pain though, like I didn't want to complain. So I was just kind of like, fuck me, this is awful. But like this is just how it's going to be. And man, I was kind of like mad at everybody I knew because I was like, all of you undersold this epidural. Like you all told me it worked. And like what I'm feeling is not close like the worst pain I've ever felt.
Yeah. And I think what's worth double tapping into is how much you are keeping the pain to like how much you weren't complaining about the pain to the nurses for them to clue in as to how bad it was and then realize the epidural wasn't working.
Yeah, like I have a very high pain tolerance. Like I love to box. You can hit me in the face and I'm typically fine. So here's how bad the pain got. And also there's like a note to be made here, like shout out to everyone that's had a natural birth. It's not for me. Okay. Cause this was kicking my ass. But what happened was they're like, I started to scream at one point and I was like hysterically crying and I was looking at Harrison and I was like, I am in so much pain.
Would you describe it as like you held it in until you didn't hold it in?
Yes. And then I just like broke because I was exhausted at this point and I'd been pushing for like 3 hours. But I didn't have a lot of energy to push because it was just every time the contractions would come, I was just like, I'm going to throw up. And I would throw up a lot because it would hurt so bad. So finally I look over at Harrison because the nurse leaves the room for a second. And she's like, I'll be back in like 15 minutes. And I just look at him and I'm just like sobbing. And I'm like, I can't get this baby out because I don't have much energy left. So like something has to change. I don't know what it is. I started begging for a C-section. which was shocking for me because it's very unlike me. But I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, the hospital was phenomenal, and every single nurse we had was absolutely incredible. But I think there was confusion on our end of like, is this epidural, like, should this be happening? And so I think you said, is the epidural working?
Well, there was like a decent amount of conversation. Once we realized the epidural may not be working was a thing, or once we realized the epidural not working was a thing, like it very quickly turned to like, I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working. And, you know, there was definitely an element of like, you know, they were saying it was. And then when you like really got vocal about how you were feeling, everyone clued into, okay, they need to redo this thing. So
I was at the 10 and the epidural wasn't working. And this is how we really figured it out, was they went to sit me up to put in the new epidural, because what can happen is your epidural, they're flipping you side to side every hour to keep your blood flowing, and the epidural can move in your spine. And one of my friends had texted Harrison and was like, hey, this happened to me, pinch her feet, and if she can feel it, the epidural's not working. And remember, you came over and you pinched my feet, and I was like, ow! And you were like, I don't think the epidural's working. So, like, we knew at this point epidural was not working, and I was feeling everything. So they sit me up to give me to put in the new epidural, and I just fainted on the nurse. So I think we knew it wasn't working.
Yeah.
That was it. I just, like, she sets me up, and I just went, boom, on her. And what I was hoping was that I would wake up and there'd just be a baby on me, and maybe I had the C-section, but turns out all that happened was they put in the new epidural, and that epidural worked. After pushing for 4 hours, I felt, and the baby's head was like down in my cervix, and they were like, you're going to have to take an hour nap because you need energy, and like, you're not going to get this baby out.
Yeah. So our OB came in at this point, and that's the point when you're just like, C-section. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you got this, but you got a nap for an hour. So,
and that epidural kicked in, you guys, and I was like, oh my God. Like, that was a labor I could do. I was like, oh, holy shit, this is what it feels like. Like, it just took my pain away. And I just took, like, Harrison and I both, it was probably 10 a.m., took the nap of a lifetime. Like, we zonked out. And then when we woke up, I remember Harrison woke up. So the nurse comes in after, like, on the hour mark hits, and she flips on those lights. She's like, are you ready to get this baby out? And I was like, I am so, like, now I can do it, because I had the energy, and I was numb. Like, I was like, yes, I can push now. I could have pushed for 4 hours with this. I was also very afraid, because I was like, if that pain, I can't have that pain come back. I could not handle it.
So at this point, it's like 24 hours in, and you just went through like the craziness of the previous 24 hours. And I remember when we woke up from that nap, just like waking up and thinking like, how the fuck is she going to do this? Like, after looking at how much energy you'd exhausted and like the state you were in, to like turn around after that hour was truly unbelievable.
But the nurses were the best, because every time, it's funny, without the epidural, when you push, you feel everything. With the epidural, pushing is really funny, because people tell you to push like you're trying to poop, and you can't really feel anything. So you don't even know if you're doing it. And these nurses are like, yes. And like, you can see the head a little bit. And it's like, that's what fuels you through to the finish line. It's just like every push. And I think I pushed for an hour and a half after we woke up. And while it felt like an hour and a half, it also felt like 10 minutes, because every time you're pushing, you're just like, is this head getting closer? Like, is she almost coming out? And my OB office is across the street from the hospital. And so all she needed was a 4-minute heads up, because she just jogs across the street. She does it all the time. Like, every time we were in there for a checkup, her phone would go off. She'd be like, I gotta go. And she just runs across the street and delivers a baby. So I was so excited for them to send this text message to her saying we're 4 minutes out. And whenever the nurse said, okay, text Dr. Wang, I was like, we are 4 minutes away from meeting this kid. And like, the last 9 months is over, and the last 24 hours is over, and like, we're going to meet her. And so the OB comes in, and she just immediately puts on the gown, gets down there, and she's like, push, like, give me everything you have. And I just remember it took me 3 rounds of pushes with her. And then like the feeling, you were peeking down there. You said you weren't going to watch and you watched.
Well, there was no curtain.
Yeah, there was no curtain.
They talked about like, are you a behind the curtain guy or a front of the curtain guy? There was no curtain. Like, unless I'm sitting there with my eyes shut.
Well, you wanted, like, you saw her little head. Like, we saw her hair color like 30 minutes before because you could just see her head. And I'll never forget. She's like, okay, one more push. And she pushes. And you just feel this body like slither out of you. There's no way to explain it. And you just hear this cry. And she's like, ah. And then they just toss this baby on top of you. And like, it is the best feeling in the entire world. Like, it's the most rewarding feeling on the planet. And immediately you're like, I could have done that level of pain for a week if this is what I get at the end of it. And then immediately your uterus is on complete fire and you're like, why is this happening? But there's not words to explain it. And you got like a little video of me and I'm just like crying and you're just like holding her and you're just like, this is our little baby. Like, it was the most surreal moment. There's not words I can't describe it in words. If you felt it, you know. If not, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. It's the best.
Yeah, and I feel like I've heard this described, by friends with kids, and I didn't really get it, particularly the emotional side of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, after all that work that you do, for then the end of it, for the child to be there, like there then is like the tsunami of emotion that hits. It was an unbelievable experience.
I thought it was going to be like amazing, and it surpassed what I thought by 100 times. Was it that way for you?
What specifically?
Just everything, like the moment of her being there.
Yeah, the moment of her being, like, I think what you went through was like just jaw dropping. Like, you were,
and people have it
like,
way worse. Like,
such like a champion. In terms of the feeling, it was much more emotional than I envisioned.
Yeah, it was emotional and just like, it's just life-changing. I don't know. There's not, like, words don't exist in the dictionary for us to apply to the situation other than, like, we were just on cloud 9. And then it's so funny because they take the baby, they measure, they do all the things, and you're like, they're stitching you up. Like, you're still, it's all very fast paced. Like, they're stitching you, you're cutting the umbilical cord, then they're measuring her, then they're coming back over and like immediately reporting about the kid. And like, you got to do skin to skin. And it's like, it's very fast paced. And then everybody like leaves the room for a second and it's just the three of you. And it's like it's this rush of emotion because you like now there was 2 of us and now there's 3 of us. And like, you and I have to keep this little baby happy, like she's yours. You've imagined her for so long and now you're looking at her and it's just like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's amazing. Best feeling in the world.
Yeah, the other like crazy piece of the equation in what you just described was like the baby comes out and it's crying and they're doing all the testing and it's, like freaking out because it just entered the world. And then to calm it down, all they did was just put it on your chest. And just like that, she like totally calms out. And just like speak how that connection can exist so quickly outside of the body. That was really, really amazing to see.
Well, it's crazy too because you aren't like, you're a doer and you're kind of like an alpha type personality, and the whole time throughout the whole process, like, you can't do anything. Like, you were sitting beside my bed, like holding my hands and like doing all that you could, but it's like so mother dependent to get this kid into the world. And then the second it is into the world, to calm it down, like, because the baby doesn't view me as different than her until she's 6 months old. Like, she thinks we're the same. And so it's this wild thing of like, she's both of our kids. She's half you, half me. but it does rely so much on the mother for the first like 6 months.
Totally.
And it's this really weird, like I see you with her and like you do skin to skin and like you have this bond with her. Like we had a lactation consultant come over earlier and she was like, this kid knows you're her dad and like knows your voice and like feels you and like you have a very big part in this, but it's still so crazy how mom dependent it is.
Yeah, well, the role that I felt I had was like the water boy on a sports team. Where like you're on that team, but you are not on that field. And as much as you want to be on that field, there's no way that you're going to get on. And so you just got to sit there and you just got to cheer and be supportive. And when they want the water, give them the water. And when they don't, like, get out of the fucking way. Yeah. So it's like, it's such a weird dynamic to be so emotionally attached to something, but have no ability to really influence it. Right.
And I was just looking at you like pleading, begging, and you were very vocal. Like you did everything you could at one point. I think this is the way I described it. At one point I didn't have the epidural. Harrison went outside, something was said, and then I got a new epidural, and thank you for that. And like you did the most that you could, but like pain wise, it was like I couldn't give you half of it. I just had to do it.
Yeah, would love to have taken.
I would have given you all of it. So then the way it works here is you deliver in a room and then you stay in that room for 2 hours afterwards. They call it the recovery period. And then you go to postpartum room. So we moved to the postpartum room and I'll never forget, we get in there and like you just carry the baby to the room. And then the new nurse like talks to you, checks your vitals, checks the baby's vitals, you get settled. And then she's like, all right, I'll be back in a couple hours. Remember, feed her every 2 hours, change her diaper, count the amount of diapers she has, burp her, and mom, you remember to change your pads too, and like leaves the room. And I remember Harrison and I looked at each other and I was like, have you ever changed a diaper? And you were like, I don't think so. Have you? And I was like, no. Like we went to a newborn class and we fake changed a diaper. This baby's diaper was on backwards the whole first day. Like every time somebody new came in, they'd be like, the diaper's on backwards, tabs in the back.
Well, throughout the birthing process, someone was in the room holding your hand through the journey like the entire time. Mm-hmm. And then you go to that postpartum room and child's yours.
The child's yours. And so like what we knew then versus what we know now, we didn't even know how to like really hold her. And then yesterday, like you learn your parental instincts are incredible. Like we're not big child people, I would say before. Like I hadn't been around very many newborns, a couple, you too probably.
Yeah.
And the way you just go into instinct mode and figure it out is it's unbelievable and it's really fun.
Yeah. I think like you specifically, like your bond with the child is it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And it's showing a side of you that I did not know existed. And like to me that feels special. Like I don't know how that works with mothers and their children, but like your bond with Tate is like, it's crazy. Everything from just how smoothly she breastfeeds to your ability to calm her down to your ability to feel out what she needs. Like it is as far down on the scale as I ever could imagine in terms of like true mother-daughter bond.
To be honest, I didn't know if I would have that.
I had no idea if you'd have it.
Yeah, I was just as curious as like I guess you were on it. Like I was like, listen, I think I will be able to meet this child's needs, and I'm very interested in breastfeeding. Like I read a lot of books and I went to a lot of classes. But would that like motherly part of me really blossom? I didn't know to what extent. And I'll just say I've shocked myself too. I'll just leave it at that. And like, I love it. Whenever like you're now on a 24-hour clock, you don't have days and nights. You just have a day. Like nighttime is the daytime. You're feeding her every 2 hours. I love feeding this child. I'm lucky that my milk came in and like I am breastfeeding. I feed this kid in the middle of the night. I love it when I have to do that. Changing her diaper, like understanding her cues, like skin to skin, all of it. Like I absolutely love it. I feel like purpose around it, and it's like I'm really drawn to it. And I can't explain it. It's just this like instinct.
Yeah, one of the, I have like a million stories that jump out to me. The one that like really jumps out was on Sunday when my family was over and like we're having dinner and everyone's hanging out. And then like I noticed her eyes just kind of like look like they're like puffing. And like, it's like, is she having an allergic reaction? Like, what is this? And so I took her from the family member holding her, and like she was wearing something she hadn't worn before, so I took it off and I brought her upstairs, and started like the assessing if everything's normal, and like just next thing I know, you're over my shoulder, like take the kid out of my hand, and just have her on that little chair thing, and just like bring her into like this state of calm from hysteria, like in the matter of seconds. Like just the motherly instincts are, and like in times of like, that was a time of uncertainty because we hadn't seen that. Now what was it? It was a non-event. Like when they cry too much, I guess they're that age, their eyes can get puffy. But yeah, it was like you're just all the time being this amazing mom.
Yeah, and it's constant, and it's just like, I don't know, it's the best feeling in the world, and I've never felt anything like it, but I love doing it, and but equally am surprising myself. But I'll say this, I think the best moment of my life was Friday morning, because we came home, so we stayed 2 nights in the hospital, 3 nights, had her 1 night, and then stayed 2 nights postpartum in the hospital. And the night that we woke up here in the house, and it was just like the 3 of us in bed the next morning, was, and I said this to you, but I was like, those 2 hours that we were up there, I think it was definitely the best morning of my life, if not the best like moment of my life. Just this like indescribable feeling of like, now we're a family, and it was so like fulfilling. Yeah, like
no, I
like
remember
loved
you
it.
said it at the time. So you gave the rundown of the birth story, and we've now been at home for a week. What's the first week been like?
Well, the first week has been, there's a lot of times where I don't know like what day it is. It's been 2 things. One, every moment I just look over and I'm like, wow, she's ours. We get to keep her. And I'm really excited that I'm not pregnant anymore. And like, I'm excited that the end result is here, because the end result is better than I dreamed. And also it's this new normal of like, I'm a pretty routine person. Like I like to get up and journal, and then I like to go on my walk on the treadmill. And it used to be, I like to get up and journal before I was pregnant, and then I like to go box. But now it's like, you wake up and you have to feed, and then you have to feed again in 2 hours. So I'm really trying to figure out my routine. But I also know now is not the time for a routine, because now is the time to be in the recovery postpartum phase with her. And so I have like a little anxiety around that, where I'm like, what routine should I be in? But it's overwhelmed like with just this endless joy of like looking at this thing. And then, okay, this is the other thing. You and I have gone out a lot. Like we'll take her, we can walk to a bunch of restaurants. So we've gone to 4 or 5 restaurants with her, and we'll take her. She'll sit there, we'll hang out, like we'll have a good meal, we'll walk back, like we're doing things with her. And that is like, it's indescribable what it feels like doing it as 3 people. But like yesterday, we'll go to Target and we'll like have the kid, and we'll put her in her car seat, and we'll walk out the door, and then we'll both be like, diaper bag, bottles. Like we forget all this stuff you have to take. And it takes like 45 minutes to get out the door with her, because it's always feeding time. And then it's always pack up time. And then usually by the time you fed her and then packed her up and then strapped her in her car seat, it's time to feed again. So we feed in the parking lot. It's just like this endless cycle, and it's like a team. So I like love doing it with you. And I love her little face, like when we do things.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. It's funny, like, while I totally hear you on, losing parts of your routine, what what I've really liked is the parts of our routine that she's become a part of. Like you just said, with going out for dinner and, on Saturday going and watching college football. Or like last night making dinner. Like, so like totally hear you, but I do want to give, you and us some credit on like there are routines that we're building with her.
Well, the gain's better than the loss. So I'm talking my morning routines, what I'm trying to figure out. Whereas being pregnant, we didn't go out that much. And like you and I are social. So like the second I could walk, because these stitches suck. The second I could walk, you and I on Saturday, we went to 3 restaurants, 1 bar, 2 other restaurants, and like had a blast. And so doing things with the 3 of us is way more fun than it ever was doing things with the 2 of us. And like I had a blast doing things with the 2 of us.
But also developing new activities, new routines. Like I would always normally have my coffee at home, since at least during the pregnancy thing. I used to always have it out. And now I've gone back to having it out.
This is cute. Tell him what you do.
And every day since she's been home, I've taken her to the coffee shop.
He puts her in the stroller, and it also gives me a lovely break. You've been so, I want to talk about that in a second, but you put her in her stroller and you go on your little 10-minute walk to the coffee shop.
Sometimes just with me, sometimes with my mom, sometimes with my sister.
It's one time with me.
You've come once.
I don't want to go. I love it because that's when I journal. So let me ask you this, because you can't feed her, and the majority of the time we spend feeding her. I know the answer to this, but I think it is helpful. Like, what are ways that you feel like you've stepped up around helping?
I almost feel like it's something better for you to answer than for me to answer. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, these are the things I've done great.
Okay, that's true. That's weird for you to do. Okay, I'll say this. So I think the biggest thing you did was, well, every time I feed her, you take her and you do change her and you dress her. You take her for skin to skin you're starting to want her more than like I want you to have her. So that's a funny dynamic. Like I'll be feeding her and you're like, let me burp her. And I'm like, no, let me burp her. But you have picked up the slack around like, okay, so I have a 2nd-degree tear. With that comes, I myself have diaper changes, like every hour and a half. And Harrison built me this like thing in our bathroom that holds, because you put on the pad, the ice pack, the witch hazel, and the numbing cream. But you can't bend over to pick it up off the floor. So he built me this like bathroom caddy, and like that is something that's like so helpful and thoughtful that like I can't do myself. And so it's things like that. Like a package comes in, like you just open it, like you went to the store, you make the food, like anything outside of feeding her, I feel like you're doing.
Yeah, I think that like the thing that's on my mind is like just monitoring like where you're at and reading off of that. So like, are you like, does it look like you need a break? And if it looks like you need a break, then, that's a good time for me to go and take her for a walk, or to go hang out, in the basement. And yeah, like I think that something that didn't get focused on that much was it's not like, it's like you're obviously, as you just alluded to for the first time, like you're still in a lot of pain right now. And so like, what are things that can be done to help with that pain? Mm-hmm. And reading your, like you're obviously you're so tired because of the feeding every 2 hours, like getting a feel for, all right, do you have energy? If so, let's go do something out of the house, restaurants, stores, whatever. But if not, let's make sure that we nail whatever's happening at home and have a good vibe with that.
Yeah. Like last night you were like, I can't tell if you, because I want to leave the house. I really want to leave the house, but I also am like comfortable in the house. So like last night, there's this restaurant down the street and he's like, we can walk to it or not. And it was 8 p.m. And it's like I forgot how good you are at making every day fun. And like with her around, it's really nice to remember that like every day goes back to being an adventure and she can just come on them with us. Which has made this postpartum journey like really exciting. Because it's not like Monday through Friday You know, you've never lived that Monday through Friday have to be like work, and then Saturday and Sunday are the weekends. Like every day for you is kind of a weekend, and like you bullishly refuse to live any other way. And now that she's here and like I feel good again, I feel excited about getting back into that kind of like adventure.
Yeah, it's been fun, and like the adventure is starting again. What's been the most surprising part for you so far?
Aside from like anything baby related, I actually can't believe how bad the stitches hurt downstairs. Like maybe I lost my pain tolerance somewhere along the way, but like, I don't know, everyone I've talked to agrees. I thought that relative to birth, that would be pretty easy, but people told me you really can't go on long walks for about 2 weeks, and you really can't. While it's manageable because like you have your baby and you're so excited and you need to be doing nothing besides like feeding her and being around. Holy cow. That's shocking to me that it hurts that bad. What about you? I know that this is nice because you're not going to have the same one as me.
Your pain downstairs. I don't know if it's probably like not a super exciting answer, but it's been like honestly what I'd thought and what I'd hoped for.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think that, you know, even though it all moved fast, I felt like we were really prepared. Right.
Yeah, we did. We took those classes. We read, like we really did do our homework.
And I felt like that in addition to being prepared, like we were really ready for the next chapter. Mm-hmm. And she's come and, you know, she's been so sweet. And, you know, like life has really, like the new chapter has begun, and we're in, you know, the thick of the new day to day and figuring out what works and figuring out what doesn't work. But like, it's really everything I hoped it would be. Like it's yeah.
That's really funny because
my life's.
You can say that. Yes. I hope maybe it was because pregnancy was tough. I had these like high expectations, but we just blew them out of the water. So like, it's crazy for me to hear that like you must have really expected it to be amazing, because it's amazing.
She came out, it feels like she's been healthy, she's been engaged, and even though she's 7 days old, like she feels really sweet. And so I think because of those factors, they've enabled a really smooth transition into parenthood, which is, I feel very fortunate about, but also was the outcome we were hoping for.
No, totally. And we're very thankful for. And
very thankful.
Yeah, it's also been nice, like feeding times, no phone. I've just been off my phone in general. And I feel really like in our own little newborn bubble. And it's a feeling I want to bottle up and take with me forever. Next week we can do a Q&A. I'm sure we've missed a ton. I'm sure people have like tactical questions for us that we could answer.
There's other stuff that like I think would be fun to talk about at some point, but
right now we're just in our little newborn bliss.
Do you want to update your dairy status?
My dairy status? Okay, so Harrison wants me to try dairy to see if I can have it now that I'm not pregnant anymore. And I'm just like, what day do I pick to try dairy in case it makes me like super sick? So I haven't tried it yet. I don't know if I can have dairy. It has been an adjustment though, because I'm so used to going to the refrigerator and just grabbing like a stick of cheese. So now I'm grabbing a turkey stick, but it's not nearly as fun. I haven't had cottage cheese yet. But I don't know if I can have dairy yet. I will test it. It's going to suck if I can't. It's going to really suck. But actually it won't suck that bad because I'm just back to not craving it. I just want my bland food again. I loved the hospital food. I ate every meal at the hospital, and Harrison was Postmating everything. And I would just order chicken. I mean, the hospital food is...
We'll get your palate back up.
We won't. I hope not. I love my palate. It was so simple. So simple.
All right.
So next week we'll do the Q&A. We'll put up a box. You guys can ask whatever, and then we'll answer it. Let's wrap it here, and we'll go back to our little feeding bubble. Go feed that little babe. Okay?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for listening. We love you all. Okay, guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Just Alex, powered by Just Media House. If you enjoyed the show, which I think you did because you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. All of those things are so important. Stay connected on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Just Alex Pod. Post-production by Creative Evolution Studios. Theme song to the Just Alex Pod by Gideon Shawkin and Denisha. I'm Just Alex, you're just you. Let's keep doing this thing. New episodes every Thursday.